Okay, so what are some of the other things that you're seeing? What are some of those skill sets that might be needing a little bit of support more so than others?
So one thing that we see repeatedly, and again, we saw it pre-pandemic, but not to the same degree, is what would fall into the category, psychologically speaking, of a characteristic of perfectionism. There's a few, so I'm sure you're familiar with something called cognitive distortions or irrational beliefs. This is something that we all carry with us. We all have, there's kind of a set of about 15 cognitive distortions that are often called. Things like catastrophization. So if we see something, we see it unravel in front of our eyes, even though that will never probably happen. Things like believing it's either going to be good or bad, when in fact it's probably a lot of things in between. And one of the things that we see a lot with our students repeatedly is this idea of a quest for perfection and the barrier that places in front of them. So as an example, our students are matched with a coach. And every year, there's a subset of students who, for whatever reason, because they're not very organized and we're helping them build those skills, and they don't email much, and they have 8,000 emails in their inbox because no one's really taught them how to do that. So they'll fall a few weeks behind. They would have supposed to have reached out to their coach, and they haven't yet. And then we check in with them because the coach says they haven't contacted me. And almost every time they say, it's too late. I missed my chance. I messed up. I can't reach out to them now. They're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm a bad person. No. And this is just a person desperate to help. They so desperately they're volunteering and they have huge hearts and they have a lot of skills and they don't care at all. But the students in their minds believe that they're going to somehow be canceled or judged because they didn't meet this goal that they had set in their minds and that we had kind of set for them. So that happens time and again. They won't reach out. They won't do something because of the fear of it not being good enough. It's not one or two students. It's like a pervasive thing that we see in almost all of them in some way, shape, or form, which I think is pretty new.
Yeah, and that can be a very paralyzing feeling. Like if I'm not going to get 100% on this, why would I even start? And so we can see that manifesting in action, just not making a start because of that fear of failure or not attaining an expectation that comes from who knows where. And I know a lot of the young people that I talk to, they have these internal expectations of themselves, but they also sometimes have assumed expectations from their parents. So they will say, oh, I have to go to university because my parents would never let me take a gap year. Or I have to go into engineering because even though I love art, my parents would never accept if I went into an arts program. And so they invent these expectations or they assume these expectations without actually having a conversation with their parents. And when we get the parents sitting down, they're saying, no, I would never say that to you. I want what's best for you. Go into the arts program. But they have this pressure and this desire to meet or exceed those expectations, which I think is such a new phenomenon that they don't know where their parents stand, so they make assumptions. So if parents can have conversations with their young people and be vocal and open in that dialogue around expectations, that can really help the young person find a little bit more ground and find that confidence, I guess, to take a step forward.
Yeah, and I think it's so there's a compounding effect, especially again, those who know me or those who work with me know that I personally believe that there's a net loss in social media and many of the technologies we use today. That's my stance. I've thought about it a lot. I've researched it. I've experienced it with many young people, and I think that there are many great things that have come from information technology. But I think that as it stands right now, it's a net loss because of the psychological impact that it has on all of us. Let's be clear, it's on all of us, but in particular on young people who don't know any different. They've never experienced the world where you had to dial your phone, the rotary phone, or you had to go to your friend's house and knock on the door. They've only just been given access to millions of people who are supposedly just killing it in life and on easy street and making millions of dollars when they're 21 and living in an infinity pool. and all their friends who are seemingly so happy. We've all talked about this before, and the truth is that people, I think, are just exhausted by this idea. They think this is not going away, and we just end up kind of ignoring it. But we do spend a good amount of time in our program talking about social media, because the expectations, like you said, are coming from the parents. And even when they're explicit about that, sometimes a student internalizes it in a different way that wasn't unintended. And then there's the expectations that they're taking in from everywhere around them, largely online. And then those are kind of processed in a way that becomes internalized. And it's really fascinating to hear how they describe it. But the experience that they have online is a huge challenge, a huge challenge.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And I think the more that we can get people to start talking to each other and talking to different people and asking questions, I think there's so much value in that. And I know Discover Year brings in tons of coaches and mentors and people from various career pathways and they talk about the realities of their life and not only the shiny social media, forward facing rainbow sunshine unicorn stuff, but the challenging stuff too.